Welcome everyone to the RTIP Roundtable live stream. This is NYRA edition with Saratoga opening up this Thursday. We're super excited to have two folks from NYRA here. We have Andrew Offerman, the Vice President and General Manager of Operations, and Joe Longo, who's the Content Manager of NYRA Content Management Solutions. And we are trying to get Keith Doleshel, the Racing Secretary, on the line as well. The issue is connectivity. He's up in Saratoga, and one thing I remember about my time in Saratoga, you get those terrible rainstorms and things didn't necessarily work as smoothly from a technology standpoint up there. It's a little bit, I would say, off the grid. So hopefully he'll join us. Well, let's get started with Andrew and Joe. Maybe Andrew, you can start and talk about your time at the Racetrack Industry Program. One cool thing we touched on before we started, the four of us, Keith, Joe, Andrew, and I, all interned at NYRA and then all subsequently went on to work there. So pretty cool. So Andrew, maybe you could kick us off with just a little bit about your time at RTIP.
Sure. I joined the RTIP, I think, in the second group of master's students. And at the time, I really had only had experience in racing from like a media relations press box perspective, and really gave me the opportunity to kind of at the time, mold some MBA classes in with the racing classes, further some of my business education, and obviously, as you mentioned, had an opportunity to intern here back with Hal Handel, actually, who was here at the time, and he put me in every single department in the entirety of the racetrack. I think I worked basically for between a week and like 7 working days amongst almost every single different group amongst a Belmont season and a Saratoga season. So I had the opportunity to live a Belmont Stakes and see the operations behind the Belmont Stakes downstate, and then up here, obviously, had an opportunity to see what an amazing venue it was, work in the racing office, and really thoroughly enjoyed my time, as an intern at NYRA and at the RTIP.
How about you, Joe? What was your RTIP experience like?
Similar to Andrew's in that it was for the master's program. So seeing it now more to a lot of it's who you know, not necessarily what you know. And I didn't know anybody, so came out west there. Was actually did the same thing. So interned in between the 2 years there, did the Belmont Stakes, was the entire Belmont meet, majority of Saratoga before coming back to Tucson there. Mine was strictly racing. So I was in the racing office the entire time. Having had some exposure to ops and things like that previous to the experience. Thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. Mostly, again, I didn't necessarily do any MBA classes or anything like that, having already had my MBA. So it was strictly just as much racing stuff as possible. But enjoyed the time out there. Not so much the heat, but seeing that it's going to be like 115 there this week, I'll certainly pass on that.
Yeah. I'm heading up to Emerald Downs. We actually have an intern there who's having kind of the same experience that Andrew had at NYRA. Every week he texts me, says, this week I'm with the stewards, this week I'm in the racing office, this week I'm with marketing. So it's been pretty cool. And I think that's probably the best way to learn what you like and what you don't like and where your heart lies at the racetrack. So
yeah, I can tell you at the same time that I was there, when I interned in New York, we also had Alexa Rabbit, who's now director of, I think, communications with Highwoo. She did a similar thing where she was able to see a number of different departments. So I know that certainly, so I certainly encourage that if you kind of want to see what you want to do.
Keith, can you hear us? You're all good?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
You're great. Yeah, thanks. So we're just touching on.
So Andrew Offerman is Senior VP of Operations for the very reason that getting me hooked up, telling me to go to the admin building, hook up on the Wi-Fi, and it worked because the hardwired Wi-Fi and the Wi-Fi in the racing office was not very successful. So thanks for the tip, Andrew, and hopefully there's not a boardroom meeting here in the next 45 minutes where I have to move.
Well, I'm glad you got on. So we were just touching a little bit on what your time at the RTIP meant to you, and we were just joking that all of us all four of us interned at NYRA and then subsequently went on to work there. So maybe we could just talk about RTIP.
You know, for me, it was really the gateway into the racing industry from a career standpoint. I was a fan before that, was involved in a couple of partnerships, but really didn't know, how to really, make it a career. I, like many other people, probably saw an ad in the racing forum or whatever, kind of had in the back of my mind, and sort of figured this, isn't probably overly likely to happen, especially as I was approaching my late 20s. So I think just making the connections, obviously the knowledge that we got from our classroom learning and from the instructors that were there at the time was important, but I think just making the connections in the industry, everybody knows everybody in racing, and you end up meeting somebody that you think was, just a really chance encounter, who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and next thing you know, it's it could lead to internship offers. It can lead to doing something like a mentor lunch at the symposium that could lead to something a little bit more. So it was very instrumental in me just making those kinds of contacts, because I didn't have family involvement in the industry. And I went to the racetrack once when I was a kid, probably 6-7 years old with my father. And then the next time I went, I was 20 years old, finding racing just kind of, almost by accident. Back in California.
Yeah, so let's talk about this upcoming season. Thank you, first of all, for joining us on such a busy week. I know what it's like getting a race meet going. So we appreciate that, but it was also so timely for folks that are watching live, or they're going to watch the recording, just because Saratoga starts Thursday. You run through Labor Day, I believe, 1:05 post time. I know certain stakes days you start a little bit earlier. You probably have more races on those days. But maybe, Andrew, you could start off with just what management is doing this year, what folks can see differently at the Saratoga Race Meet for 2023.
Yeah, I can let Joe speak to some of the timing and some of those components, but specifically from the fan experience perspective, I think the biggest difference that was talked about over the winter is that we eliminated the concept of clubhouse and grandstand. So it's a single admission price to get into the building. Obviously that had gone away a decade ago at a lot of other venues, but it really opens up this venue for the first time to fans that want to come in and see the entirety of the experience and hopefully be restricted from less spaces. So I think that's an exciting change that puts a part of the building. It makes a part of the building more accessible to people for the first time. And the other thing from my perspective is trying to bring more ways for fans to engage with us, provide their feedback, give them systematic survey tools to get us information about what their experience looks like. I think that, intuitively, everybody has a good time being here. You can tell by the crowds that we continue to draw and the excitement that it brings to the facility, but looking for continuous improvement opportunities is really giving them the chance to give us that feedback about what is working, what isn't working, and what things we can do better in the future. From a facility standpoint, we've got a new bar, a new concession stand that's opening in the grandstand, the Finish Line Pizza Bar and Grill, which is kind of a preview of what some future renovation work could look like. It was kind of used as a pilot program for potential future enhancements throughout the facility. So a lot of cool things happening so far this summer that we look forward to putting in front of the fans this week.
Can I take the bet on high food prices as being the number one issue? At least whenever we surveyed folks, and we try to do a lot of that when I was at Santa Anita, that was always the top of the list, figure out how to lower food prices. And it's tough. It's
no doubt.
It's a tough challenge.
I can tell you, having gone to a number of concerts and things in the last couple months, Saratoga was a bargain compared to spending $13 or $14 for a water.
I saw beers at $19, $20. Yeah, at a concert I recently went to. It's tough. Just inflation in general and other issues of running food service. So folks know it's not a gouging thing. It's just things are expensive these days. So, I heard about this breakfast and breeding farm program. Could one of you maybe take that one? Andrew, you're shaking your head.
Sure.
Sounds pretty neat.
Breakfast at Saratoga has been an institution for a long time and something that fans have looked to enjoy. to get out, see workouts in the morning. Obviously, other racetracks, Santa Anita maybe most famously, has made a big deal out of Clockers Corner. But I think the thing that's unique about this is the opportunity to go see the breeding farm and really get a 360-degree view of the industry. It just came out here in the last couple of days that the economic impact of this meet, I think now is up to over $370 million within the region. And when you start to look at the economic impact, a lot of it's been driven through the breeding industry. So giving people this chance to see, really the entirety of the industry, I think is very, very important to NYRA. It's very important to Saratoga and the region. It's very important to the local businesses. And something, honestly, we're really excited about. Last year, it sold out, I think, within a couple of days of opening day. I think we've sold over 80% of the tickets to it already for this year. So I'm sure it will sell out again. And we're already talking about expanding it to a third breeding farm in 2024. One of the things that I've done a lot of over my career is provide tours to people that don't have access to the backstretch or to racehorses or even to really agriculture. And I think that even during the course of my career, it's really hit me dramatically, like how disconnected from agriculture today's society is. Getting people, in their 30s or 40s that have never been on a working farm before or never interacted with livestock or with horses is a significant hurdle to overcome. Whereas everybody, maybe had a relative that had a farm 50 or 60 years ago. So we've been continuing to try to figure out what we need to do within the industry to make sure that we're doing the best for the most number of people. I think it's incorporating all aspects of the industry, and that's what this does.
Yeah, a plug for the symposium, which is December 4th through 6th here in Tucson. We are going to have a panel on the importance of economic studies and have some of those success stories. So we've talked to some folks in the New York breeders, the Florida breeders, and then some folks that pulled together these economic impact studies for folks in the industry to see the power, just like the number you threw out for just Saratoga, which is, a short meet, and how it affects hotels and restaurants and golf cart manufacturer and gas stations. You go down the list, and it's amazing how much, your racetrack touches. So
I do recommend the breakfast, though. Normally I try to do it at least once every year. I haven't done any of the breeding farm stuff, but I think it's still buffet style, right, Andrew?
Yeah.
So I do recommend it. If nothing else, it's just the backdrop of Saratoga. It's just nice to be on track. So I do recommend it for everybody. And you can still get breakfast without doing the breeding farm, I believe. So
correct. Yep.
Joe, did you have a correction on the post times that I mentioned, or things changing? Or
I have a very love-hate relationship with post times, and I'm sure Keith and Andrew can attest to that because I'm constantly moving things around. But post times on a day in and day out basis, majority of days is 1:10 Eastern.
1:10.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe you could talk just about the importance of post times, just why that 5-minute difference between 1:05 and 1:10 could make a big difference in the way things operate.
Yeah, I think on a day in and day out basis for all, just removing what we do with television, because that adds another wrinkle. But just in general, it benefits everyone to stay off of each other. And I know particularly in the summertime, it gets kind of tough. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's doing the customer any favors in that they're going to have to choose between betting one track or another because we're right on top of each other. So to the extent that everybody can stagger, or if you already know, if you're just a small regional track, I need to stay away from, in case of Rito, is it, whoever, in that period of time. But yeah, so specific to what we do here, for the most part, Aqueduct, we work, and all the majority of tracks do work together. I will say that, like us, Keeneland, Gulfstream, we all do. Last couple of years have done very well. But specific to Saratoga, we have so much with television, and then you have the switches between the networks coming on and off through any number of the Fox channels. And then occasionally we may have additional tracks on the show. So the scheduling is important. We make as many tweaks as possible. One of the reasons we're doing a 1:10 start as opposed to a 1:05 is to help the lead in on the show. So most of the days it's a 1 o'clock start, rather than have 5 minutes, into the first race and everything, has to be rushed. We moved it out a couple minutes to give a little additional time for setup. So there is method behind some of these changes.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thank you for that explanation. So you guys run 5 days a week, not this opening week. It's you start on Thursday, but after that you run 5 days a week. Most racetracks these days can't make a 5 day a week schedule go. I think you guys have done some things with the New York bred program, which ties into the importance of breeding, but maybe you could talk about that, Keith, of just how you can make it work and maybe some of the things that you do to get 5 days.
So, on the surface of it, and thankfully we have a full barn area, and it's a place where people want to participate, both owners, trainers. I think sometimes even at the expense of maybe the tail end of the Belmont week, although we had really good racing closing weekend, and creating the Belmont Derby and Belmont Oaks back there, and with a stakes heavy program. Closing week is certainly a big thing to kind of kickstart the summer and the Saratoga Meet. By the same token, you are creating another kind of event week that some of those races maybe that you could have run at Saratoga, now you're trying to strengthen the back part of Belmont. With that said, it's a little bit daunting on the surface, but it is a place that people want to ship into a little bit more than maybe Belmont and Aqueduct, and having a full barn area always does help. So but it is 10 races a day is our goal, with 11 plus on the weekend, on Saturdays in particular, sometimes upwards to 13 races, or it's preparation. It's kind of trying to get a good handle on the horse inventory as early as possible, which can be a little tricky because you get an influx of horses, which is great for the horse population. I think it's great for the racing, where you're getting horses from other places that don't maybe run with you nearly as much at Belmont. But it is trying to make sure that you have races that you're kind of thinking about writing a book according to that. So maybe you are able to write back certain categories a little bit quicker than you normally do because of an influx of horses, and maybe you do have you're able to cheat and run an allowance race that maybe is about every 4 weeks, every 3 weeks, and you need to have the confidence it's going to go. As it relates to the New York bred program, New York breds are an integral part of our program throughout the year, and sometimes at that point it can get also a little tricky because you're wanting to showcase the New York bred program in the way that we did by strengthening the purses for New York breds and open company. But there's only so many races you can put on any given day, whether they're open races, New York bred races. So I think you are, always trying to be cognizant of making sure that the folks that have a lot of New York breds or that support your program, throughout the year, have a place to run in Saratoga. And in some cases, I think there's a little bit of consternation when they might not see as many races as they were hoping maybe in book one. And then you just have to be cognizant of the fact, like, guys, it's a 40-day meet. Most categories will run 2, maybe 3 times at the meet, and just we'll try our best to give everybody a fair shot, as well as the fans, a fair shot seeing the right kind of mix of races that people want to watch and bet on ultimately. Yeah,
I saw opening Sunday is the Quick Call Stakes, and it's a horse I remember running, and the one thing I remember about that horse is that it ran a lot. I was in high school and early college, so I looked it up. He ran 86 times in 7 years. I mean, we need more racehorses like that, and you need more racehorses. The industry needs more racehorses like that these days. That it's essentially once a month for 7 years in a row. Pretty incredible. So I'm glad you honored that horse. It was kind of a favorite horse, and the nice thing as a fan is you get to know the horse. You see the horse every 30 days, every 25 days when it runs, at Aqueduct or ran at Aqueduct or Belmont. So it was really nice. You kind of just a horse that just a hard trier that I'll always remember. ADW front, Joe, do you have anything to report there? Anything new that those players could see?
We are working on a promotion that hasn't been finalized yet or given any approval, but I will say it is certainly worthwhile for everybody that are playing the races, and also encourage everybody, shameless NYRA Bets plug, to check out our promotions and the calendar for the entire meet. I know we're going to be doing a lot, but the one promotion in particular, hopefully we'll have out before the end of this week. and it would be a long-standing one for the meet. So stay tuned.
So go to NYRA Bets on Sunday and check it out, or Saturday and check it out. And
I'm hoping by Friday. So
Friday. Okay, so that's
we're hoping.
Okay, so hopefully people that are listening to this. Oh, there's a shameless plug on the screen.
There you go.
Check out that promotion and take advantage of it. It sounds like it's going to be a good one. So
yeah.
Can you also talk, Joe, just about the distribution of the signal? It feels like the international racing world is kind of coming together more, and there's just more. Ascot recently put on a good show for Americans. I think you may have some qualifying races that qualify for international races. Can you just talk about maybe the racing world becoming a little bit smaller and people working together more?
Yeah, so I'll leave the one racing, that qualifying race with Keith. I'm sure you can speak more to that. But as it relates to, the distribution in general, about a year ago, we announced a partnership we're doing with TSG's Global Wagering Solutions, which is the international distribution arm of First Content. So our friends over at the Stronach Group. And effectively what we're doing is through this partnership looking to leverage power of supplier to extract as much value for North American racetracks. What you had happen was over the time, specifically with COVID, and we were the only, real content around, there were a lot of people that got exposed to our product that still enjoy it. And they're realizing what we actually have to offer. So by partnering together, we're increasing distribution throughout the world. We're able to, again, get as much value as we can back to the North American racetracks that are actually putting on the show. So yes, we have been looking to increase that. The other piece to that as well, you're seeing a lot of these groups like Ascot look to world pools with Hong Kong. I think if the economics are right, you'd see a lot more participation. Right now, the way that revenue is kind of distributed, it's going in a lot of different places. So I think if that gets a little more narrow, I think you'd see a lot more participation. But we are certainly looking to, I say this now, and I know I'm biased being I work for NYRA, but previously I didn't, and actually got married in Saratoga. So, I've always been a fan, but I do think it's the best racing in the world, and it should be, to racing fans around the world, not just domestically.
Absolutely. Keith, do you want to talk about this new qualifying race and maybe any international angles you guys have been working on from a horse population standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, we just got an email actually from Mark Hackett, who is the racing secretary for Joseph O'Brien, about shipping some horses in, including for the Saratoga Oaks. I think it's important. I mean, the qualifier for the Cox Plate is something that, is pretty cool, just because that's, obviously one of the top races, in the Southern Hemisphere in Australia. And we did have a Saratoga Derby winner in State of Rest that won the Saratoga Derby and then ended up winning the Cox Plate. And, so it's just, being able to try to attract the quality of horses, whether or not it's the Turf Triple or otherwise. I mean, we're looking at possibly having a Japanese participant for the Jerkins here later on in the summer. And, Frank Gabriel Jr., who's our senior VP of racing, worked for many years in Dubai and has a lot of international contacts. And even just in our own, office, Andrew Burns, our stakes coordinator, has worked closely with, a number of the top European outfits. I mean, between the Saratoga Derby and Oaks and even making plans for horses coming, I mean, we've been on the phone or talking to shipping, to try to facilitate shipping arrangements, or just making sure that we're providing facilities so horses can quarantine or not. So it's something that I think, have definitely tried to make strides in doing and trying to make it as easy as possible. Because in all actuality, many of the Europeans that I've talked to, they like running in New York. It's not an incredibly difficult ship to get over from Europe to New York. And, they all pretty much to a person said that, that would be one thing that, if we could get a Breeders' Cup back, which hopefully in the future we will, how much European, how excited people were when they hear that this could be on the horizon when we do have a new Belmont Park, is because it is a place where Europeans seem to, have found success doing in some of our big races, and it's really not that difficult to ship and make it work, whether or not you're shipping into, into New Jersey, if you're shipping into JFK, and you're able to quarantine and be able to run, within a short period of time. So, the thing with Mooney Valley is very, very exciting, and I think we're going to see quite a few, strong international horses come in. Mainly, I think for the Saratoga Derby and Oaks, but we oftentimes the Sword Dancer will, Aidan O'Brien has sent multiple horses in for the Sword Dancer before. The filly that won the Aspen Grove, we're hoping is going to stay to run in the Saratoga Oaks. I know, Craig Bernick mentioned running at Del Mar with her too as being an option, but it's a fine line, because you want to see your local horses participate and do well in there too, but you also kind of like to see some of these other people from England, Ireland, France, wherever, saying, well, I can ship into New York and I got a chance to run for really big money, maybe more money than they're running for, in particular in England, but Ireland as well, and find success. So I think there's a lot of untapped potential in the international marketplace. It's something that Andrew and myself, and even some of the crew in the offices, I tell you what, I never probably followed international racing maybe the way I should have until I got here and realized that it's. I think we have a bit of a strategic advantage in location, purse money, as well as being able to offer the kind of races that are intriguing for top international participants.
Yeah. You guys are doing everything for the better ultimately. And as a handicapper, I think that's what makes the Breeders' Cup so interesting as well, is because you have horses coming from all over. It makes it the puzzle a little more challenging. So having a few international runners not only obviously increases your field size, which every bettor likes, but it makes the puzzle more interesting, at least from.
Basically in the spring, Charlie Appleby more or less had a stable in New York. It varied with numbers, and horses ran once, left, might have run in multiple races, but to have somebody like that, we had Joseph O'Brien here last year for the good portion of the meet. You're talking about some top connections that basically say, yeah, we're going to have a New York outpost, even if it's a small outpost, for the better part of by the time Saratoga is done,
That's great. That's great work.
Upwards of 4 months, 3 to 4 months, is I think a testament to what we're trying to do.
Yeah. So NYRA is unique, unfortunately, in the racing world. So many of these racing companies are also gaming companies now. NYRA really has 100% focus on racing. Maybe, Andrew, could you talk a little bit about kind of what a unique opportunity that is for NYRA?
Sure. It's, obviously, the time I spent at Canterbury was special, but very different. It was a small market. Racing was only a portion of the business opportunity. Granted, I think we did a really good job with that part of the business. It still wasn't the ultimate driving force between the entirety of the business. So coming here and having a chance to see what NYRA is doing, see what Joe and the business that he's helped get off the ground has done, see what Dave O'Rourke, our president and CEO, has put together. We're doing a lot of different things, but it's all based around the industry itself. And that's pretty unique. And it's easy to come to work every day when your sole focus is on racing, how to make it better, what to do for the future, and give you an opportunity to talk every day with our great team, guys like this, about how to make racing better for not only the present, but for the future.
Yeah. Maybe in closing, because we need to wrap up here, the time goes really fast on these things. Can you give us an update on Belmont and kind of where things stand now, what fans could expect to see in the next year or whatever the time frame is to get that racetrack completed?
Sure. So I think that right now, obviously, the legislation was passed that provides a loan. The next steps are working out the exact framework behind that loan. Once that's finalized, there'll be a lot clearer picture as far as timelines, what happens moving forward as far as race dates and where we're at for what periods of time. But obviously, it's a very exciting opportunity to be a part of looking at a new facility, which would really revitalize downstate racing, I think, in a very important way to NYRA and the state of New York as a whole, and something that's very exciting.
Yeah, it's great to see an investment in facilities and an investment in racing. So you guys are doing great there. Unfortunately, I've been to too many facilities where that investment hasn't been made and there's too much deferred maintenance. And for you guys to take the lead on such ambitious projects is really noble and noteworthy. And I can't wait to get back there when it's all done and check it out. So anything else to add before we wrap up here? Anything you want to touch on that we didn't touch on? I know you guys are busy with the meet. Keith, when are entries? Are they?
So we've drawn the first 2 cards, and we draw tomorrow for our first Saturday card. We have the Diana being the center piece of that. We have the renamed Kelso, which was a dirt race in the fall. That's now basically the Forbidden Owl that renamed. That was traditionally a race that we run, opening week, and then it was on Friday for the past several years. Moved to Saturday, and we have the Sanford, which is usually it's usually the other Saturday co-feature that for 2-year-olds. So it kind of usually the winner of the Sanford. Now, going back to what you're saying about quick hold, doesn't always run back in the Saratoga Special. It's normally, some of those top horses will run the first Saturday and then into the hopeful. But yeah, so it's we're drawn, like you said, with 5-day weeks. We are still maintaining a pretty traditional 72-hour schedule. We do go 5 days out, Sundays for Fridays, Saturdays for Thursdays because of the 5-day week, as opposed to when we're 4 days a week. It is a little bit tighter of a draw schedule. So yeah, hopefully we have a good opening Saturday card. I think the first 2 cards are pretty good, and as always, weather up here can be a little bit unpredictable. So last year we were very fortunate. I think we only lost 17 grass races. So the bar is, it's set pretty high from that perspective, because you can lose 17 turf races in the course of a week, or, a course of a meet up here. So, but yeah, I know we're optimistic. First 2 cards that we drew were I think, pretty solid. And hopefully Saturday follows suit tomorrow.
And to piggyback on that, we're going to have a ton of coverage on the Fox networks. So pay attention. Also on Saturday, a little curveball, we're doing similar to what we did last year. So we have Meadowlands Pace on from 10 p.m. We're also going to be doing a crossbreeding wager with them. So a pick 5 with the Meadowlands. We're also going to be doing coverage for them on Hambletonian Day. So certainly keep an eye out. You'll see a lot of that stuff in press releases.
Very cool. You guys are always cutting edge and always trying to do new things. And good luck on the meet. For anybody that hasn't been up to Saratoga, you have to make it. Any racing fan, that it's a sin not to go to Saratoga. It's so spectacular up there, and it's in great hands with 3 RTIP alums in leadership positions at NYRA. So thank you for your time, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Good luck. All right.
All right.